Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. A lot of criticism has been leveraged against the third episode of The Acolyte. I was actually stunned by some of the hatred and anger because, I actually enjoyed the episode. But if you look closer at the comment section, you'll see a lot of valid criticism about The Acolyte, stuff that I would love to address. And for all you guys out there who are making rational criticism of the show, it's becoming increasingly hard to do so. It's a fine line to walk, especially now that the culture wars all immersed in Star Wars. You get caught in the crossfire from both extremes when you're just trying to make a good point. But anyway, let's talk shop, specifically the end of episode 3. It seemed rushed. A small fire destroying an entire fortress, a bunch of dead witches lying on the floor without any explanation. This has to be terrible writing and planning, right? Well, I'll tell you what, guys, after watching this episode again, specifically that last part with fresher eyes, I think this was done deliberately. As a matter of fact, this might be one of the most interesting twists in a storyline we've seen in recent Star Wars. Now, in my original review of episode 3, I admittedly brushed past the ending. I knew there was something strange about that part of the show, but I lacked the strength and energy to carry on. I was tired, and so I focused more on the interpersonal relationships developed in the earlier parts of the show, which I found really interesting. Star Wars is usually about lightsaber fights, war, and politics, which is great, but sometimes it's nice to welcome a different view. In this case, the female gaze. It can give us a very different perspective of an old franchise we know and love, and teach us things about it we never really realized about it. Anyway, after making that video, I sat down and I called my editor Congo, who is an extremely wise individual. He spends most of his time now in a cave on top of a remote mountain range with his gaming laptop. Congo not only gave me a rundown of what he thought about the episode, he also actually made me a video essay with his own thoughts, overlaid with Acolyte footage, which, let me tell you something, is extremely rare. There are only 2 recordings of this man in the entire world. One when he accidentally walked in front of a column tanks in Beijing while on an archaeological dig looking for the Monkey King's skull, and now this. Let me play some clips.
May we have some spice creams?
Those are not for little girls who run away from home.
There's actually spice in those spice creams?
After the Ascension ceremony.
In Galaxy, spice is supposed to be like a dangerous addictive drug, right?
This is why I love Congo. He always cuts straight to the meat of the issue.
First thoughts, this Wookiee is proportionally, it does not look right. Head just seems really big, body seems super tiny. I don't know if that's a costume thing or just...
Maybe he's like a Wookiee runt, like the smaller stature makes him more calm and therefore compatible with the Jedi Order. Oh, interesting side note here, Juno Sutama, the Finnish actor who took over for the legendary Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, also plays Kalnaka.
Alright, now this is where I started thinking about future Torbin in episode 2. Like, is this what happened? Did he see visions? Or what was going on with him during this time while he was being paralyzed? Like, what kind of witchcraft did she put on him?
So, Jedi Master Torbin, as Congo pointed out, there's something off about his part of the story, which made me realize that at the end of episode 3, the audience, what we see is only one perspective of how this event happened. We're not the omnipresent observer that we usually are in Star Wars. They're purposely not showing us everything. The last time we see Master Torbin in episode 3, he was taking the blood from a child without her consent. And the next time we see him, he commits suicide. Not only that, he has a gnarly scar on his face and is missing an eye. Now, obviously, a lot of things can happen in 16 years that could have caused this terrible injury, but the fact that this Jedi Master commits suicide after apologizing to May still sticks out in my mind. It makes me think that he really feels bad about something, and it's not just the hastily taken blood samples that he didn't have any consent to take. There's something else afoot here. Something else happened to him during that fateful night in the fortress. And if we look at the Acolyte trailer, labeled cunningly Plan, Jedi Master Torbin goes rogue in that trailer and ends up fighting Kalnaka for a split second. Obviously not every shot in the trailer is going to make it to the end film, but there's a gap here. Like, something happened to Torbin, and so we haven't seen the end of these flashbacks. There's got to be at least one more flashback episode, or at least a series of flashbacks that will show us what happened. Plus, a lot of sharp-eyed fans out there pointed out that when May set Osha's journal on fire, creating a hazardous work environment.
You can't go. We're stuck here now. It's not up to you. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. How? I'll kill you.
Well, that's a little excessive. What does this just mean? Just, you know, just some sibling nonsense, you know?
There's really no way that such a small book, even a small oil lamp like this, could cause such a huge fire and several what seems like controlled explosions all across the fortress. It's almost like an inside job. I don't want to be like a conspiracy theory guy right now, but that's exactly what's happening here. Plus, a lot of you guys in the comments pointed out that we might be seeing what's known as like the Rashomon Effect here. You see, George Lucas took quite a lot of influence from a variety of different shows when creating Star Wars. I mean, that's how most art is made. I oftentimes have this philosophical debate with people like, is any art original, or are we just mixing and matching everything that comes before us and all the experiences we see? Anyway, George Lucas loved one specific Japanese director, Akira Kurosawa, commonly held up as one of the best movie directors in cinema history. Now, for a lot of American viewers out there, especially my age, you know, he was before our time, and he's also Japanese, so unless you're a real film buff, you might not have seen any of his movies. Anyway, A New Hope, or the original Star Wars films, plot loosely resembles The Hidden Fortress, one of Akira Kurosawa's most famous films. One of my favorite correlations can be found between the two peasants, Tahi and Matashichi, and C-3PO and R2-D2. Both of these pairings are basically casual observers caught in the whirlwind of war and destruction in their respective films. Lucas has also joked that the entire Star Wars saga is seen through the lens of this little astromech. You know, these droids, like peasants in feudal Japan, were seen as kind of unworthy, and therefore were allowed to kind of fly below the radar and watch everything and not get killed. Star Wars runs, and you know, one thing that creators who followed George Lucas always honored was the man's love for Kurosawa. The Seven Samurai is another very famous Kurosawa film, and it tells a tale of a group of warriors hired by poor farmers who are trying to defend their crops from bandits. This story has been retold not once but twice in Star Wars. First by Dave Filoni in the Clone Wars episode Bounty Hunters, and then by Filoni and Favreau in the Mandalorian episode Sanctuary. Now, Rashomon, like most Akira Kurosawa films, is set in classical Japan, and it tells the tale of a mysterious murder of a samurai in the forest. The draw here is we hear the details of this murder from four separate individuals who all have pieces of the puzzle, but very different motives. In essence, the storyteller here is untrustworthy. It's designed to keep the audiences unbalanced. And, you know, honestly, if The Acolyte was released in its entirety and we didn't see, like, one episode at a time, I hope most people would given the series more of a chance than they would have realized that this is what's happening. This is the problem when you review a show when it's only like 3 episodes in. You could be missing a lot. Now, if you look at The Acolyte, there are also 4 individual Jedi Masters, all with very different personalities and perhaps different takes on the events of what happened in that fortress. Now, Osha is not one of those masters, but right now, we've only seen the destruction of her family's fortress through her point of view. She is an objective observer, one that we can trust, but one with a very limited view of what happened. I mean, yes, it seems like May almost murdered Osha in what Congo lightly calls sibling nonsense. But then again, we don't actually see May throw the oil lamp. We just hear it crashing on the floor. They kind of cut away from it purposely so that we don't see it. Osha has every right to be pissed off at her sister for setting the journal on fire, but beyond that, she didn't see anything. Like, all things considered, May is still just a child here. She's clearly upset that her twin is drifting away from her and now planning to leave the coven forever. Yes, she exhibits some dark side tendencies with those alien butterflies, but let's be honest, a lot of us would do exactly the same thing if we had force powers. But even as an adult, even after surviving whatever ordeal she did, she still had a code of honor when fighting the Jedi. She doesn't just attack them without warning. She does that really cringy line about, you know, like, face me or whatever. She also did spare the barkeep's life, which is important. I'm not saying that this is Andor level of details, but the Acolyte is pretty impressive, especially compared to like Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett. When we look back at the earlier episodes, I'm already starting to see that the little details do matter. And I don't think May is some crazy monster. You know, it's definitely not cool what she did to her sister's journal, but I don't think she wanted to kill her twin. She loves her. You know, they are two the same, right? Well, at least I don't think she would have done it on purpose. Right. Osha doesn't know this, of course. She was trapped in a room looking in the opposite direction when that oil lamp shatters, and she's forced to crawl through a maintenance duct. Actually reminds me of one of those weird like vacuum systems people are installing in their mansions now. So anyway, Osha is in the maintenance duct, and about a minute later, while walking through that maintenance shaft, we hear a scream, and then we see a fireball emerge in a grate above Osha. And I really don't think this was caused by that oil lamp fire. I mean, there's no way that oil lamp fire traveled up one level within just a minute. I actually timed it. Now after this, Osha then arrives into the main room where we see that gigantic electrical machine, which we theorized in our last video was probably used to create life from the Force. And most likely this is what Mother Anastasia used to create the twins. This thing is about to explode. This is only about 2 minutes and 15 seconds after the oil lamp was dropped. So there's no way that this little fire caused all of this. It's clear that whatever this machine is, someone sabotaged it. I'm guessing whatever power source they're using to run this thing, it's probably pretty robust, and it's being used to overload the system in classic Star Wars style. Now, Osha seems May running from what seems like a completely different part of the building, which makes me wonder if she even saw May originally outside of the room. I want to point out to you guys, this is something I'm going to look deeper into in another video, but do you notice how, as adults, Osha and May are identical twins? Played by the same actress, but as children, they're clearly not identical. Congo actually mentioned something about Osha being maybe like schizophrenic or something. This is after episode 1. I think we need to revisit that. But anyway, what's interesting here is the dialogue between the twins.
Where's Mama? Mama's dead. What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?
May's distraught. She's seen her mother die, if we were to believe her, and I think I do believe her. And later, Osha supposedly sees Mother Anastasia near the entrance of the fortress. More importantly, May asks Osha, what did you do? This seems to imply that she believes that the Jedi were responsible for what happened here. It doesn't mean she actually saw anything, but her belief is strong enough that she eventually carries out this mission to assassinate all the Jedi who came to the fortress on that fateful night. She could be misguided. The Sith, dark side Force users are great at taking people's tragic past and then using it against them to control them. But Jedi Master Soul does arrive just in time to save Osha. It's all way too convenient as far as the timing goes, which means that the Jedi were already here, which doesn't necessarily incriminate them though. Now let's go back to those scenes we saw in the trailer. This one scene where Torbin actually fights Kalnaka, and this other scene where all the witches have that black-eyed thing. I think what happened here is the Jedi came to claim their prize, after Osha passed that test. Some members of the witch coven most likely rebelled, and they called on the dark spirits through their control of the thread, the same spirits that possessed those undead stormtroopers under Thrawn, the same spirits that were used to reanimate the Night Sisters, were also used to control Torbin. That little scene where the Jedi and Coven first meet, where they ragdoll Torbin and possess him, that was just a little taste of the Coven's true power. The fact that Mother Anastasia can create life from the Force itself means this must be an extremely ancient cult with knowledge that many other Force organizations have lost in the many Jedi vs. Sith wars. With Torbin fighting against his own, the Jedi would be distracted. I think too distracted to actually cause the explosions here. I mean, this again, it looks like controlled explosives or someone meddling with the controls. It takes planning to do something like this. I think the main culprit here is actually Mother Coral. As stated, she leads the Coven. Even though Anastasia is the spiritual leader, she's kind of like the military leader of this place. She has assets, warriors beneath her command that could, set improvised explosives around that machine. It's possible that a third party is out there somehow meddling with the situation, maybe a hidden Sith Lord, a dark side Force user, maybe the guy with the mask. But I'm going to strike that out because there's really no hints that the masked individual is in this scene at all. It's very possible that the masked individual found May much later on in life and then, again, exploited her past trauma. So Mother Coral makes sense here because she has a conflict with Mother Anastasia. If you watched my previous video, we talked a lot about this. Whereas Mother Anastasia literally had a talk with Osha about following her destiny, signaling that she's made peace with Osha leaving.
Mama, I'm sorry.
Stop. Listen to me. Destiny is not decided for you by an anonymous force. You get to make a choice, Osha. If you want to pull the thread, then pull it.
Mother Coral has not. Coral is driven by fear. She lacks the courage that Mother Anastasia has. It's clear in how she reprimands the children for leaving the fortress. It's clear when she doesn't allow her children to have drug treats. And it's clear that her stringent rules are what pushed Osha away from the Coven in the first place. Mother Anastasia is the opposite. She understands the threat that the Jedi pose, she's not stupid, but she is courageous enough to understand that the individuals who make up an organization are not the organization, and that there are good and bad Jedi. And while Master Indara is a cult soldier for the Jedi Order, Jedi Master Soul, like Mother Anastasia, shares a similar courage and open-mindedness. If we take a look at a lot of Master Soul's actions already in the first 2 episodes, he follows his heart. He doesn't always follow Jedi protocol. It's like Qui-Gon Jinn. And I think Mother Anastasia sees this as well. Also, she sees that there's no stopping Osha. And sending her to the Jedi, while not ideal, will ultimately be the wisest choice and make her daughter happy. Which is really what every mother wants for their child. I mean, even Mother Coral wants it in a more misguided way. I think this is why this story, this interpersonal relationship, resonates with some people and not with others. I mean, this is about parenting, right? And Mother Coral, like so many parents, are just afraid of losing their children. In all fairness, she did bear these twins. Yeah, Mother Anastasia used crazy magic to create them, but the physical hardship was all Mother Coral's. And we see during the standoff with the Jedi, she's already very aggressive. She barks at the Jedi like a mother protecting her pups from predators. If she's willing to tell Master Soul that, she'll cut his tongue out, and I feel like she's pretty unhinged already at this point, and capable of doing something truly stupid. But anyway, that's all I got so far. This is kind of a half-formed theory. We're going to build on this a little more with some more videos. I look forward to seeing what you guys think. But anyway, guys, this is only episode 3. And from the beginning, we knew this crime thriller was going to release little bits of information here and there for us to consume. The patient viewers, the individuals who remember a time when reviewers waited until the series ended before giving their overall thoughts about how the series was made. Well, I think those who stick to the end will be in for a very well thought out and meticulously planned story. Which honestly runs counter to most of the reviews out for the Acolyte. I mean, not just in social media. I mean, I read a Forbes article that said, like, episode 3 of The Acolyte was the worst thing ever. And it's sad that even in Forbes, they're rage baiting. I mean, that used to be like a legitimate media company. And now they're just hiring any weird wackos off the street. I mean, by its nature, these type of thrillers have to be well thought out. And oftentimes, you don't really see it until the very end, when everything is revealed. Episode 3 reeled me in because of its heart and just the change in pace of storytelling from the usual Star Wars we see. The focus on intimate relationships rather than galactic struggles was just different, just like how Andor was different. Usually most Star Wars heroes don't get to spend an entire episode with their parents before they're set on fire, exploded, or killed by rebel terrorists. And so this is a nice change in pace. But now that I see the mystery slowly being weaved through the show that, first started in episode 1 and 2, I think I could be more than cautiously optimistic. If they can pull this off properly, all these twists and turns, hidden details, I mean, this could be truly a very unique Star Wars experience. Maybe one of the best. I've always said that the Star Wars galaxy is massive, and I welcome new directors to explore different genres. And The Acolyte is a great example of what can be possible. And so, guys, I mean, get ready. If they can pull this off, by the end of the season, if they can pull this off, we all need to go out there and tell people, this needs to be like Andor 2.0, because, when Andor came out, a lot of people just were like, we're not watching this, but that turned out to be one of my favorite Star Wars shows ever. And when Disney makes good stuff like Andor, if Acolyte can be good, they should be rewarded with viewership. And when they make terrible stuff, they shouldn't be rewarded. I mean, this is how it used to work. This is how the feedback system used to work. But now with the culture war, everything is broken. Well, guys, thanks for sticking around. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. See you next time.